Her name appears in the genealogy of Jesus Christ, listed alongside patriarchs and kings. Yet she began her story as a Canaanite prostitute in a condemned city. Rahab's story is one of the most surprising examples in all of Scripture of how far God's grace reaches,
and how radically a single act of faith can change the direction of an entire life.
The story of Rahab appears in Joshua chapter 2, at a pivotal moment just before Israel's conquest of Canaan following 40 years of wilderness wandering. Joshua, having succeeded Moses as Israel's leader, sent 2 spies to secretly scout the fortified city of Jericho, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, protected by massive walls that made it appear virtually impregnable. The spies took lodging in the house of a woman named Rahab, identified plainly in the text as a harlot, a profession that would have placed her at the margins of respectable Canaanite society. When the king of Jericho learned that Israelite spies were in the city and demanded Rahab hand them over, she instead hid them on her roof beneath stalks of flax and lied to the king's messengers, claiming the men had already left. Her reasoning for this remarkable risk becomes clear in the conversation she has with the spies afterward. "I know that the Lord hath given you the land," she tells them, "for we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you." And as soon as we had heard these things, our hearts did melt. Rahab had heard reports of Israel's God delivering them from Egypt and defeating other nations.
And unlike her fellow Canaanites who responded with fear and resistance, she responded with faith.
Rahab negotiated protection for herself and her entire family in exchange for her help, and the spies instructed her to tie a scarlet cord in her window as a sign, so that when Israel's army came, her household would be spared, much as the blood on the doorframes had marked Israelite households during the original Passover in Egypt. When Jericho's walls famously fell after Israel marched around the city for 7 days, Rahab and her family were the only survivors from within the city, brought safely out and integrated into the community of Israel. Remarkably, Rahab's story doesn't end with her survival. The genealogy recorded in Matthew chapter 1, tracing the lineage of Jesus Christ, lists Rahab as the mother of Boaz, the same Boaz who later married Ruth the Moabite, making Rahab a direct ancestor not only of King David but of Jesus himself. The New Testament book of Hebrews includes her explicitly in its roll call of faith. By faith the harlot Rahab
perished not with them that believed not, when she had received the spies with peace.
James's epistle references her as well, citing her actions as evidence that genuine faith produces visible works. Was not Rahab the harlot justified by works, when she had received the messengers and had sent them out another way? To understand the significance of Rahab's inclusion in Israel's story, it helps to consider the surrounding culture. Canaanite religious practice at the time typically involved fertility worship connected to deities such as Baal and Asherah, often including ritual prostitution as part of religious observance. Rahab's profession likely placed her within this broader social and possibly religious context, making her conversion to faith in the God of Israel even more striking, a complete reorientation away from her culture's dominant worldview toward the God she had only heard about secondhand. The deeper meaning of Rahab's story challenges any assumption that God's grace is reserved only for people with respectable pasts or clean records. Rahab wasn't an Israelite by birth. She wasn't part of any covenant community, and her profession placed her outside every conventional category of religious acceptability in her culture. Yet she is remembered in Scripture not primarily by her past,
but by her faith and the courageous action that faith produced.
Her story sits alongside figures like Ruth, another foreign woman, in demonstrating that God's redemptive plan has always included those the surrounding culture, and sometimes even God's own people, might have overlooked or excluded. Rahab's inclusion in the genealogy of Jesus carries particular theological weight. Matthew's genealogy includes only a small handful of women, several of them with complicated or scandalous backgrounds by the standards of their time, suggesting deliberately that the lineage of the Messiah was never meant to be a showcase of moral perfection, but a demonstration of grace reaching into real, complicated human history. Rahab's past didn't disqualify her from being woven directly into the ancestry of Christ.
Her faith and her willingness to act on it did far more to define her legacy than her former profession ever could.
For anyone who feels that their past has permanently defined them, disqualifying them from meaningful purpose or genuine belonging within a faith community, Rahab's story offers a striking counterexample. She wasn't asked to first clean up her life before God's grace could reach her. She was met in the middle of her actual circumstances, responded with the faith available to her in that moment,
and was fully welcomed, not merely tolerated, into the story of God's people. Her legacy wasn't erased by her past. It was transformed by her faith, and history remembers her not as a footnote of shame, but as a woman of remarkable courage, listed permanently among the ancestors of Jesus himself.